This video demonstrates how subscription management works in the ServiceNow platform to give customers visibility into their subscriptions so that they can allocate users to subscriptions, track subscription usage over time, identify compliance issues, and make informed decisions about subscription purchases. Here we focus on per-user subscriptions. Linked timecodes for these topics appear in the YouTube description for this video. Many ServiceNow applications are licensed by subscription. Your organization purchases a subscription to an application or suite of applications, which entitles an agreed-upon number of your users or resources to use it. A person who is allocated to the suite you purchased is a subscribed user. Only subscribed users or resources should use applications within a subscription. The subscription management application applies only to production instances and allows you to review and manage how purchased subscriptions are used on your production instance. You can monitor usage to update subscription levels. Subscription management supports the most common licensing models for ServiceNow products. The subscription management application is active by default in new instances starting with the Helsinki release. For instances upgraded from previous releases, the ServiceNow subscription management plugin must be activated. Here, we're logged into our ServiceNow instance as our subscription administrator, Adela, who has the usage admin role required to manage subscriptions. It's important to make sure at least one person in your organization has this role, because if subscription notifications are enabled, all communications relating to subscriptions are sent to users with this role. Here are the modules in the subscription management application. Getting started links to the product documentation for this application, which is helpful if you're new to the platform or to subscription management. The Subscriptions module provides an overview of all our purchased subscriptions in two categories, ServiceNow and Store application, from the ServiceNow Store. Here we have the name of the application and the type. Subscription types are covered in the product docs. You allocate users only to per-user subscriptions. For most other subscription types, the system automatically allocates users or resources. For example, Discovery and Orchestration both use capacity subscriptions, where the system automatically counts resources, such as nodes or transactions, so no manual allocation is required. Each subscription includes the start and end dates that match your purchase. And here are the number of purchased entitlements and how many of those have already been allocated. The yellow dot warns that the number of allocated users is within 10% of the total purchased entitlements. And red means the number of allocated users exceeds the number of purchased entitlements. The Display Only field is true if there's something unique about your subscription that can't be managed by the subscription management application. For example, you may have a custom suite that includes a special combination of applications or unique subscription parameters. For a display-only subscription, the system provides subscription metadata, but you can't allocate users to the subscription. Also, you can't change the value of the display-only field. Now let's look at a subscription record. Here on the form are all the fields we saw in the list, plus a few more. We've purchased 200 entitlements for this per-user subscription, meaning only 200 users will be able to use it. But we haven't yet allocated any users, so our allocated value is 0. These entitlements will be split between our IT support and development departments, which handle incidents and problems. A separate team manager for each department is responsible for allocating new fulfiller users as needed and keeping an updated list without going over our purchased entitlements. Here in the related lists is where we allocate users and also manage other aspects of the subscription. In a small organization or for a subscription with a small number of entitlements, the simplest way to allocate users is to add them individually through the Subscribed Users tab. We'll add our team managers this way. Now, these users have the right to use the Service Management Suite application, and our Allocated field has been updated. The more common way to allocate users to subscriptions is through user sets. Proven practice is for large organizations to do it this way, and even small enterprises may find this preferable to adding individual users. User sets provide better control over the user population and simplify subscription maintenance over time. We've already created some user sets, including one for our IT support department. We need a user set for our development team, so we'll give it a name and description. Our source can be either the user table or the group table. If we select Group, we can add one or more of our existing groups to the user set. This would be a good way to designate our users if we could distinguish them by group alone, but we can't. With the user source, we can set as many filter criteria as we want, using any combination of these fields from the user table. So for example, we could filter by department, location, manager, or roles. In this case, we need to include active users in the development department. As we add filter conditions, we can update the matching records count to make sure the filters we're applying are meaningful. Now this user set has 70 matching records. Not all of our developers work on incidents and problems. Those who do have the ITIL role. So let's add a role condition and see how that affects the matching records count. Good, let's save it. Here are the people who meet the filter conditions for this user set. After creating our user sets, we allocate them to our subscriptions. We can allocate multiple user sets to a single subscription, and we can allocate the same user set to multiple subscriptions. So let's go back to the User Sets tab on our Service Management Suite subscription to allocate our user sets. And here they are. The users from these sets have been added to the two who are already in our subscribed users list, giving us a total of 183 users. The source column tells us how each user was subscribed, whether added directly or through a user set. Our allocated status has changed to yellow to let us know that this value now exceeds 90% of the purchased value. If you want to change this threshold, you can do so through the Subscription Management Properties module. Just edit the value here and save it. The Auto Sync User Sets feature provides a huge benefit when you allocate users by user sets. As people come and go in your organization or move around within it, if they meet the filter criteria of the user set, they're automatically added to the user set and allocated to the subscription. Likewise, those in the user set who cease to meet the filter criteria are automatically removed from the user set and subscription. So when the Auto Sync User Sets checkbox is selected, as it is by default starting with the Kingston release, you don't have to go in and update the user set or allocate and remove users from the subscription manually. When Auto Sync User Sets is selected, the lists automatically update hourly. Clicking Sync Now updates them immediately. There may be some users who should be excluded from the subscription even though they qualify according to the filter conditions in the user set. In our case, these users were subscribed because they met the filter criteria, but they shouldn't be using any of the applications that belong to the Service Management Suite, so we'll exclude them. And to prevent them from unallocated usage of applications in that suite, we'll also remove their fulfiller access to those applications. Now they're on the excluded users list and won't be added back into the subscribed users list even when Auto Sync User Sets is selected. This excluded users list is specific to this subscription. It won't affect these users' eligibility for other subscriptions. That brings our allocated count back out of the yellow zone with 177 of 200. When Auto Sync User Sets is enabled, the system won't over-allocate users to subscriptions. For example, we just acquired a company, thereby adding 25 developers to our team. This brings our development department user set count up to 83. Allocating this whole group of users to the subscription would exceed the number of purchased entitlements. So the system didn't do that. Instead, it displayed notifications explaining why these eligible users weren't allocated and where to find them in the pending users list. Though the subscription still has some unused entitlements, the system put the whole group of users here rather than randomly selecting a subset of them to allocate. Let's allocate 23 of these users the exact number needed to use up all purchased entitlements. That leaves 2 unallocated users in our pending users list who would otherwise qualify to use this suite of applications. Subscription management is a self-policing tool that allows customers to manage their own subscription usage. At present, ServiceNow doesn't lock the subscriptions to enforce entitlement limits. So we could make a decision to go ahead and allocate these remaining users, because they need access to the application suite, with the intention of purchasing additional entitlements to accommodate them. If we do this, we get a warning that allocating these users will exceed the purchased subscription limit. Let's go ahead and allocate them. Now the allocated field turns red to indicate that we're over-allocated, and we need to rectify that. But we want to limit our allocated users to the number of purchased entitlements so that our team managers don't ever over-allocate users. So we select this Limit to Purchased checkbox. Now, if anyone tries to allocate an additional user, a message explains that it can't be done because it would exceed the subscription limit. Those 2 developers need access to the subscription, but a couple of members of our development department won't be working on incidents going forward and therefore don't need access anymore. So let's swap them out and the pending users in. The excluded users will show up on the excluded users list. We'll also need to remove any fulfiller access to the applications in Service Management Suite V2 for Billy and Conrad, so that they no longer have the right to use the suite and don't get flagged for unallocated use. That means removing the ITIL role from their user records. As we manage our subscriptions, these history logs provide at-a-glance status and trends on subscription activity. The system records every subscription update here in the subscription history. The user subscription history tracks users as they're subscribed and unsubscribed from the application. Source shows the name of the user set that acted as the source of the user. And allocation type lists the method, user set or direct, for allocating the user to the subscription. As users are added and removed from subscriptions regularly, the subscription administrator wants to keep a close watch on usage to stay on top of compliance issues. Subscription management offers 2 different dashboards, Subscription Overview and Compliance Overview, with reports that display the allocation and compliance status for all the company's subscribed products. This is the same subscription list we saw before. And down here are overview charts, one for each of our subscription applications. These charts are updated monthly, and we just started using the Service Management Suite V2 subscription, so there isn't much data for that yet. But we've been using Customer Service Management for a while, so let's look at that one. 3 metrics are represented here as average counts across time: the number of fulfillers allocated, the number of fulfiller non-subscribed users, and the number of fulfillers purchased. Ideally, the green line should be 0 because it shows how many users are using the application but aren't allocated to use it. The blue line denotes our history of allocated users. The yellow line shows our history of entitlement purchases, which has been at 150 for the last 12 months. A capacity chart displays 2 lines representing the purchased count and, depending on the suite, the nodes or transactions used. The Compliance Overview dashboard displays subscription usage at the application level, tracking unique application users and unique out-of-policy users for individual applications over the past year. For example, here's allocated usage for our per-user Customer Service Management Fulfiller subscription. It shows month by month how many allocated users were using these applications. And it also shows any unallocated usage for all of our subscription applications. Finally, this chart tells us if there's any use of applications that we don't subscribe to. This is unlicensed usage. If you need clarity on which applications are included in your subscription, they appear in the Subscription Applications related list of the subscription record. For example, our Service Management Suite V2 subscription includes Asset Management, Change Management, and all the rest of these. Also, drilling down into an application lists all the related plugins so that we know which ones are included in the subscription. For example, Incident Alert Management is inactive. We could activate this plugin without any additional licensing requirements. For more information, please consult our product documentation, knowledge base, or podcast, or ask a question in the ServiceNow community.